Now Kant particularly defines enlightenment and becomes a kind of synonymous figure with enlightenment or rationality project, and he is rightly regarded as the most explicit and articulate exponent of enlightenment tradition in Europe, and he defined enlightenment in a very distinct and particular way, which was very definite from say the empiricist led materialism and the rationalist led skepticism before Kant. So there was a agreement on the use of human reason and science as the basis of true knowledge, but there was also a kind of diversion or differences between the empiricist or the rationalist, between the skepticism and the materialism and so on. But Kant provided a very definite answer to what is enlightenment for the individual being and how one can achieve enlightenment at the collective level, at the level of society. So Kant defined enlightenment as human beings coming out of their self-imposed immaturity condition, and this point we need to discuss, right. It is convenient for us to be guided by the existing practices, values and norms in the society, and in doing so we do not take the trouble, and there is no danger of encountering anyone in the society, and we just follow the norms that is prevalent in the society. That could not bring about enlightenment. And human beings live mostly a kind of slave life or a subject life to the pre-existing norms and values in the society. That man cannot be the enlightenment, and without man being enlightened, how we can bring enlightenment at the collective level, or how we can bring about the enlightened age. So Kant defined enlightenment as human beings' capability or daring or courage to come out of their self-imposed in a sense that nobody tells them to do that, but they just follow it because it is prevalent, it is convenient. Why to think, why to critically engage with the prevalent norms and practices in the society, and thereby endangering one's life or endangering the prospect of one's life. So it is easy, convenient to lead one's life according to the prevalent notion and norms. So this immaturity condition, that is to be dependent on the norms and values that is set by others in the society, and you do not really engage rationally, critically with forming the imperative that will guide your action. So this condition then of dependent to norms and the values that is set by others in the society is immaturity condition, and this immaturity condition is self-imposed, and man cannot be enlightened if they live in this self-imposed immaturity condition. So enlightenment for man, according to Kant, is their ability to come out of this self-imposed immaturity condition. So this immaturity condition, according to Kant, are not the result of lack of knowledge or understanding. So it is not that human beings do not understand which norms are bad, which norms are good, which norms are desirable or undesirable. It is simply their lack of courage to follow what they think is right. So it is in the lack of determination and courage to use one's own reason, understanding or knowledge without the assistance of another. So the motto of enlightenment, according to Kant, is therefore this sapere aude, that is dare to know. Know for yourself. Do not understand something because it is said by others, or it is said by the society, or simply it is dominant in the society or accepted by the majority in the society. You must base all your knowledge, all your understanding through your own reason. So sapere aude, that is dare to know, becomes the motto of enlightenment, that is have the courage to use your own understanding and not the understanding that is prevalent in the society. So Kant was a strong advocate of public use of reason or rationality to bring about enlightenment and progress at the collective level. So Kant makes a kind of then distinction between the private or the public use of reason. And without entering into chaos or anarchy because of excessive use of reason that leads to skepticism and also critique of all forms of social political authority. To avoid that, he makes a very clear and ambiguous in a way distinction between public and private sphere of life. So he argues that a great portion of man remains in the lifelong condition of immaturity because it is convenient, it is easy. Once you use your reason and then when you subject your action according to that reason or understanding, will create trouble with others in the society. But if you follow the norms that is prevalent in the society, then life is easy, much more convenient, and the society will remain as they are. Now, to bring about enlightenment is to use one's reason and have the courage to abide by or follow that reason. So, a great portion of man, according to Kant, remains in the lifelong condition of immaturity, and it almost becomes their nature. Why they do it? Just it is prevalent in the society and followed by majority in the society, not because their mind or their rational thinking intellect tells them it is right. So, according to Kant, no revolution can change this condition except freedom, and freedom he defines in a very distinct sense. It is to use reason publicly in all matters without restraints. So, however, he also argued that unrestrained use of reason and rationality could lead to chaos or anarchy in the society, and to avoid that he makes a distinction between private and public use of reason, and he allowed unrestrained use of reason or rational faculty on public matters. So, in personal capacity or in personal sphere of life, individual must obey the laws and established procedure, but publicly as a scholar intellectual, he should have complete freedom to scrutinize those actions, those procedures. So, let us take the example, one can question the text authority in public because of excessive tax and so on, or the challenges or the limits of that tax system. However, so long such tax laws exist, that person must pay the tax. Let us think of this public and private in other ways. So, suppose one individual is in army, and when in operation as an army man, he must obey the command of his superiors. But as a scholar, that means as a public person, as an intellectual, he should have unrestrained freedom to criticize the command of his commander. Now, that becomes a kind of ambiguous. How the same person can lead this dual life of a private, personal, professional life of an army man or a clergy or XYZ in the administrative structure of the society. But the same man then should also publicly, as the scholar or the intellectual, express his opinion about a particular action or the particular text or the particular procedure or the particular laws to bring about enlightenment at the collective level. So, I mean, it is a kind of paradox that you have seen in Rousseau's thought. Man is born free, but everywhere he is in the chains. Man can be free, and that freedom can be achieved by forcing the man to follow the general will. Similarly, in Kant also, he acknowledged the existence of paradoxes in the society. So, he wants the use of reason, but excessive use of reason may lead to chaos and anarchy. To prevent that, one has to make a kind of delicate balance between the personal life as a citizen, as a army man, as a clergy or what XYZ in the administrative structure, but as a public person, as the scholar and intellectual, he or she should have unrestrained freedom to criticize any laws, any actions, and there should not be any limits to such public exercise of reason. And this is this public use of reason that would bring about enlightenment in the society and progress in the society. So, to the question whether we live in the enlightened age, where there is unrestrained freedom to use reason publicly on all matters, Kant's answer was a categorical no. We do not live in the enlightened age. Enlightened age is you achieve that stage in society where there is unrestrained freedom to use reason publicly on all matters. We do not live or have achieved that stage of life because there is so much of dogmas, so much of prevalent notions, rules that guides or curtails that freedom to use reason publicly. So, his answer that whether we live in an enlightened age or not, his answer was clearly no. Nonetheless, he agreed that we do live in the age of enlightenment. So, there is a distinction between enlightened age, that is you achieve certain stage of life where it is permitted to use your reason in all matters publicly. Enlightenment is the age where you subject all forms of knowledge to human rational scrutiny, So, he argued that so long there are hindrances and obstacles to the public use of reason, enlightenment could not be achieved. So, or enlightened age could not be achieved. It is only possible when we remove those hindrances and obstacles. So, in many societies, particularly those in the authority or in the position of authority, whether it is the religious authority or the political authority or even in the scientific inquiry certain paradigms, if you operate within paradigms, they will not allow you to argue something which challenges the very basis. However, the knowledge progress when there is unrestrained freedom of thought and expression of those thoughts. So, enlightenment is about that in every sphere of life, public, political, economic, social and so on. Now, to remove those restraints that is cherished by those who are in the position of power and authority, they do not want all kind of opinion to be expressed because that may endanger their authority. So, think about the church or the religious authority against whom all these kind of intellectual development was taking place, which challenged the very foundation of religious knowledge and religious argument. So, there was restraints or hindrance to allow human beings to express their opinion publicly on all matters, and to remove those restraints, Kant wanted absolute freedom for the citizens as scholars, as a public person or intellectuals. He should be free to express his opinion publicly on all matters. There should not be any kind of restraints. Now, one could ask this question whether society as a whole can achieve enlightenment. Its answer is debatable because man being man will be guided by their own subjective, historical, political context and not necessarily use their reason to develop his own understanding, and even when they have their own understanding, they may lack the courage to follow them. And so long as they lack that courage, one cannot bring about enlightenment, even at the individual level, and it is even tough to bring about enlightenment at the collective level, at the level of society. So, Kant envisioned a very different kind of society and individuals, where individuals will be moral, autonomous and free to use his her reason, and they would treat each other as an end in themselves, thereby recognizing the dignity of each. It would be, according to Kant, a kingdom of perpetual peace, where man would be guided by their moral sense of duty, which they set for themselves through the use of reason. So, there is a kind of deontological basis or a kind of self-legislation of those laws which governs individual action, and this we will discuss in the next class while discussing categorical imperative. So, thus for attainment of enlightenment, Kant argued for the complete and unrestrained freedom of thought on public matters. but he did so in a manner that individual would be guided by their moral and rational sense of duty rather than personal interest that we see in modern industrial society. So, that is all in this lecture today.